Welcome to Nice and Sunny, the podcast. Okay, there we go. Once again, hello. I am still in Alaska, in Homer, Alaska, and there is something I wanted to talk to you about after having been traveled once around the globe now, and I'm basically right now on the second loop in 1 year around the world, which is pretty amazing, I have to say. There's something from all this traveling that has happened throughout the year that and before that I have spent a lot of thought on, and I thought this would be a really good podcast topic, which is basically connecting to a place or feeling connected to a place, right? I'm not sure if you know that feeling when you get to a new city or a new place and you instantly love it, or you instantly don't feel comfortable and want to leave straight away. If you travel a lot, this has probably happened to you before. I don't think it's a rare occasion. The thing is just, I always wonder why. You know, how does this happen? Like how do we have these feelings of being connected to a place or not being connected? It's obviously, if you talk to people, and let's say London, I was always super connected to London. I don't know why. I still am. I love it there. I wouldn't want to live there, visiting it is fine, but I don't want to live there. So London is a good example. I know people that just really do not like London whatsoever. They think it smells, it's too big. There's like too much drunkenness going on. I don't know. So anyways, it's basically almost any city you mention, people will either love it or hate it. And I find this fascinating. And during my travels now, there were a few places that I tried to connect to them, and I just couldn't make it happen. And I probably won't come out of this podcast with solutions or actual answers to these questions, but it's just a question I pose to the world a little bit, and like, what do you think makes that? What do you think makes you feel connected to a place, or makes you despise being in one place, or feeling uneasy in a place? So I find this fascinating. So I wanted to talk to you through a couple of the places I've been to and the experiences that I had while I was traveling there. And yeah, like just asking the question, what do you think is the reason for being connected or not connected to a place? So I will give you right away the email address. If you want to give me your thoughts on this and your experiences, you can always write me on contact@niceandsunny.com. I'm obviously not going to read that before I'm now recording the rest of this podcast, but I'm definitely going to look at the emails and using them for some feedback in future episodes. Okay, so basically I think it's super weird how when you get to a place and there's almost like a chemistry, and it's almost like a chemistry between people. Sometimes you meet people and you feel like, oh, I like this person, or you feel like, oh, I do not like this person. Sometimes it's sexual, sometimes it's just friendship, and sometimes it's an actual threat, So I have this weird feeling that there's a connection between the chemistry between humans and the chemistry between humans and places. Getting to the point of that, though, is going to be very, very difficult. One thing that I think plays a really big role is your state of mind, right? If you go to a place and you are already in a miserable situation, the place can be super beautiful and it might still not sway you. On the other hand, maybe you are in a miserable place and the specific place that you're going to is going to make things better. So your state of mind, is important for this. I think this is a massive factor. But then again, quite often you just simply do not connect with a place. So I have this thing. I'm from Germany, and I was born in Hamburg, and I only just briefly actually lived there. It was more like my birth town, but I lived in villages in the countryside in Germany. But Hamburg still, and I don't know if it is because it's the first air I ever breathed or something like that. But Hamburg is the only place in Germany that I feel properly connected to, where I would say that's a home of sort. And if I would go back to Germany, it would only be Hamburg, because I don't know why. I have a connection to the place and I can't explain why. But that would still make sense in a way that I can say this is where I was born and it's the first air that I breathed ever in my life. So maybe there is something. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's just I'm making it up. And I'm even taking it so far that I'm saying once I die, I want to be buried in Hamburg. Basically saying this is where I was born. Then I traveled the world, saw every corner of the world, and this is where I'm going back into the ground. That is my my thinking about Hamburg. So this is how connected I feel to my birthplace. The thing is, like, and this might be again the state of mind again, but for a long time the British Isles were my home. I count actual Britain, the Isle of Man, and Ireland into this. Sorry, Irish people, but I just mean the islands. So that's why I say the British Isles. Don't want to insult anybody. Just all those islands were my home for about 13 years or so. So I was living in England, I was living in the Isle of Man, I was living in Ireland. So those were my home for a very long time. A big chunk of my life I spent on the British Isles. And I felt very much at home there. You know, I don't mind the climate. I don't mind it to be rainy and dark and foggy and whatever. I felt comfortable there. I liked the way that people saw life as opposed to how I grew up and German people see life. Germans are very negative, and I just liked the way that, you know, everything was a little more positive and people were more cheerful on the islands despite the bad weather, you know. So I always found that fascinating and endearing. But after a while, and the longer I spent time there, the more I realized that everything is pretty fucked up. So the main thing is the alcohol consumption, and I just realized I can't have that around me anymore. You know, I made friends that wouldn't even just meet for a coffee because they feel like if they leave the house to go somewhere, they have to have a drink. And then they can't have just one drink, but they have to actually get drunk. And this is not just an anecdote, this is just a thing. And it goes into dating, how nobody wants to go on a date. They want to get drunk and then have sex. And then maybe one other day get drunk and have sex again. But there's no going on a date, really finding out if you have a connection or not, and then see where it leads. It's very frustrating, and to be honest, it took me too long to realize it, but I lost my connection to those islands. Yeah, so that was there. I can actually say there was a reason. You know, it was a reason why I felt connected, and there was a reason why I did not feel connected anymore. Call it maybe now age. Too old for that stuff. I turned 40 this year, by the way. Just FYI. But yeah, so those were like my connections with the British Isles as a whole, because it's very similar, and again, sorry Irish, very similar culture when it comes to how you see the world, and the drinking, the climate, everything was pretty similar. So yeah, I loved it, and then I didn't. So I felt well connected until I didn't. So that was that. So yeah, and then I embarked on my big round the world trip. And the big thing that I always wanted to do, like the bucket list number one, was New Zealand. So I always dreamt of going to New Zealand. And then I finally land in Auckland. And it was on New Year's Eve I arrived, and it was absolutely amazing. I was like, I'm here, I'm in New Zealand. And then I had 5 days in Auckland just to get my head straight and get like the jet lag done, and realize that I'm now on this journey. Before then, the Lord of the Rings tour started. That was like a 2 weeks guided Lord of the Rings tour. So I had those 5 days in Auckland, and I was so happy to be in New Zealand, but I just could not, for the love of it, or I don't even know how you say it, couldn't connect to Auckland. It was absolutely impossible. I tried. I was like, yeah, New Zealand, come on, I have to love you. It's like my bucket list thing. And no, Auckland just did not do it. And I actually became quite sad by the end of those 5 days, because I was like, I'm now finally here and I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling what I was somehow hoping to feel when I get to this bucket list place, right? Luckily, after that, I never got to warm up to Auckland, and I never really connected. But luckily, as soon as we did the Lord of the Rings tour and I saw the rest of New Zealand, all my dreams came true. It was like the most amazing experience that I had hoped for, and more. It was breathtakingly beautiful in a way that I can't even watch Lord of the Rings without just crying. So I haven't even tried it yet. I tried to watch The Hobbit, because a lot of the things that we visited were actual locations of Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies. And I tried to watch The Hobbit, and I just break into tears like all the time when I see a place that I've been to. So it sort of ruined Lord of the Rings for me for now. It will take a while to digest all that. I don't know why it cut so deep and it hit me so hard, but New Zealand as a whole completely got me in a way that is undescribable. Like, it was, first I was always like, oh, I have to go back, and it's like, no, I don't think I will go back. I don't want to go back, because it was perfect. The way I experienced New Zealand was perfect, and my love for it is even bigger, and it was the perfect experience. And yeah, I did some video blogs about it if you want to see it, but none of the pictures or videos actually do it justice how beautiful that country is. So Auckland didn't do it. The whole of New Zealand did it. And what was very strange, when we stopped in Wellington, I had this moment that I was standing on the balcony of our hotel room, and I just looked down onto Wellington, and I suddenly had this feeling of, I will one day be very familiar with this city. It was like a weird premonition moment. It's like, this will be my city in the future at some point. I will know the city really well at some point in the future. And it was super strange, because I had just basically had this thought of, this is probably a once in a lifetime thing that I will be in New Zealand. But then all of a sudden, when my eyes laid upon Wellington, I suddenly felt like I will be very familiar and very connected to this place at some point in the future. We only had 2 nights there, so I didn't have a chance to really connect to it. But I still have this weird feeling that I have to go back to Wellington someday and find out what it is, what it was, and if there is anything for me that is, this strong feeling of connection that I felt. To be honest, it's not too much outside the box, because there are some projects that I would be very, very interested in to work in Wellington. I mean, there's still a lot of movie productions and stuff going on. And a big dream of mine would be to be able to work on the Lord of the Rings museum that they are trying to set up. But yeah, so that's a project I'm working on. I'm trying to get there. Still super interesting. I think I've never had it that strong that I looked at a city and had this strong feeling of, this will be my place one day. So yeah, not sure what's going to happen, but mark my words, who knows what will be the stories in the future. Then, so yeah, another one then in New Zealand was, of course, Christchurch, and everybody's always like, oh, it's so beautiful. And of course it is beautiful, but similar thing, I couldn't really connect to Christchurch. It was nice, of course, it was beautiful, way more beautiful than Auckland, and so many things that you can do. I went bungee jumping for the first time, and there's so much activity and so much, it's vibrant, right? That's like the best term probably. It's a vibrant, absolutely stunningly beautiful place, but there wasn't the same kind of connection that I had with Wellington, which is strange. Yeah, and then my journey continued to Sydney in Australia. And I was in Sydney, I think it was also like 5 days or 7 days even. And I tried really hard as well to connect to it, and I just couldn't either. It was a similar feeling as I had in Auckland. It's, you're there and it feels like it doesn't have a soul in a way. That's just me. I know a lot of people that love Sydney, like absolutely in love with Sydney, and I just couldn't find that, you know. I was like, I did the sightseeing tour as always, and I was like, okay, that's the Opera House, there's the bridge, okay. And I was like, nothing. There's no connection, it didn't touch my heart or my soul in any way. So it was very strange. And then people said, oh, wait till you get to Melbourne, because that was my next stop, right? Most people love Melbourne. I had so many people that told me it's the best city in the world, it's amazing, and you will love Melbourne, and it's the best. And then I got to Melbourne, and I was like, okay, that's nice. But that was it. I was there for 9 days, actually. I was there a long time, so I could give it a proper shot. And it was, in the end, I was just like, yeah, nice city. But that's it. There's like no, oh, best city in the world, or no, I have to go back someday. It all didn't happen for me. So again, maybe it's my frame of mind at the time, because I was like already thinking a little bit about what my work situation will be when I come back to Europe, and I had so many thoughts about all kinds of stuff. But and the New Zealand trip was behind me. I don't know, maybe it was a mindset thing, but I just couldn't connect to Sydney at all. And Melbourne, yes, nice city, but it just didn't have the same effect on me as on many other people. Yeah, well, then I went to Thailand. Thailand has a strange effect on me as well. There's so many different corners and so many different areas. And the first stop I went to was in Chiang Mai. And it was a really strange feeling with Chiang Mai as well. I arrived, and it's not a beautiful place. It's like sunk into, like, it's surrounded by mountains, and it's quite smoggy. So the air quality isn't very good, and it's obviously loud, and there's all these like tuk-tuks and bikes, and it's a bit smelly in some corners. And it's just like, it's not a nice place, like what I would call, because I need water as well. I have to be honest there. If I go to Thailand, I want to have the sea and the beach, and I don't want to be somewhere landlocked with bad air quality. That's just not mine. But I arrived, and it was an immediate connection to it, and I knew immediately that I will be back in Chiang Mai, and I will probably spend a lot of time in the future in Chiang Mai. It was a very strong feeling for that. And I know that there's a lot of digital nomads over there. There's a lot of business opportunities. It's, again, cheap life. You can have a full meal for like $4. It's pretty incredible. And obviously friendly, beautiful people. And it's not too touristy because it doesn't have the beaches, So it was interesting how that connection happened. Then I moved on and traveled on to Phuket in Thailand, and completely hated it. It was over touristed. Is that a word? Like over touristy, too many people. It was like I found it horrible when it comes to the prostitution that I could see on the streets there, and I just did not connect to that place whatsoever. And then I went island hopping, and I spent a little more time in Koh Phangan, and that's where I felt connected again to Thailand, and again the beautiful people, the beautiful countryside, the ocean. So Thailand is definitely going to stay with me. I just have to pick the spots in Thailand that I'm going to. And well, next month I'm traveling to Koh Lanta. I'm going to spend a whole month there. So Thailand is going to be always on my list, I think, in the future. Yeah, and then after Thailand, I traveled to Hong Kong. And I know a lot of people that have Hong Kong on the top of their list as the favorite cities in the world. And it was a similar thing again. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. It felt to me like a weird parallel universe version of London. So it was super interesting to see Hong Kong, and definitely fascinating. And it might be that I will be there again someday, but it's probably going to be more to get to Macau, because I want to definitely see Macau again. I only had like, let's say 9 hours there, and it was raining. So I would really like to go back someday and explore Macau more, and that would mean I would also spend some time in Hong Kong again. So I didn't feel a proper connection to it, but it was definitely the most beautiful skyline that I've ever seen in my life. And there's definitely more to explore for me, and I'm hoping maybe for some business opportunities as well. That's just as much as like Singapore, for example. I haven't seen Singapore yet, but I feel like those places will be quite interesting for me to look at from business perspectives as well. And yeah, after Hong Kong, I traveled to Tokyo, and same thing. I know so many people that go completely crazy over Tokyo and go, oh, best city in the world, it's amazing, it's so great. And I was just like, I just didn't feel that. You know, it was like a weird non-connection to it. I just saw it, I was like, interesting, definitely, because it's so different, right? It's like you walk through the streets and it's, you know, it's like you're the only non-Asian person walking around and everybody's rushing, everybody having these face masks on, and it's definitely fascinating to see a place like that, which is so different. Because in Hong Kong, for example, there were a lot of Westerners, but in Tokyo it was way less than that. So it was definitely fascinating to be in Tokyo, but again, I did not have a connection and I have no feeling of, oh, I have to go back someday, you know. And again, I don't know why. Don't know why I didn't connect to it, but I just didn't. Okay, and then after that, I went to Vegas. And as you might know, if you've listened to this before, or if you know me personally, Vegas is my number one place in the world. And I know New Zealand now is a close contender as a whole country. But for some reason, Las Vegas always feels like home for me. And I don't know why, because it's the weirdest place in the world. It's not even real. And I don't know why I feel home there, but I do feel home in Vegas, and I will make sure that I'm always, every year at least once, I'll be in Vegas and hang out with my friends there, play poker, and just enjoy that there is a city in this world where you can get anything you can think of and you can do anything you can think of, which is pretty unique. And a lot of people think it's all just gambling, and it's not. Like, Vegas has everything, everything you can think of. And I think that's probably why I love that place so much. I mean, I even wrote a book about Vegas. It's called StripNet, and you can find it on Amazon. Yeah. Yeah, I love Vegas a lot, and it always feels like home to me. And it will be really interesting to see how that pans out in the future. But as it turns out, which is really interesting, now that I have this life of a digital nomad and location independence, I know now that I do not want to be in one single place. So even Vegas, which is like my favorite place, or even thinking of New Zealand, I could not stand the thought of being there longer God, I can't speak English anymore. Being there for longer than like 3 months at a time, you know. So that is a very interesting insight in my own psyche as well, knowing that there's no place on earth that I want to be in for longer than 2 or 3 months before I get restless and want to move on. So a really interesting thing that I found when I was researching this kind of topic is there is no real answer, like why you feel connected to a place and why you don't. But I would really, really love to hear from you guys about similar experiences and why you think that is. But what I found out was there's a notion of something called a soul place, a place that your soul is connected to. So the exact definition here is: a soul place is a special site or spot where we experience unique feelings of belonging, empowerment, and energetic rejuvenation. So this feeling of belonging, you know, the other stuff sounds a bit juju, but like a woo-woo. The feeling of belonging, that's really the interesting part. So I was like, okay, soul place. So maybe Las Vegas is my soul place, which is pretty fucked up if you think about it, but it's okay. You know, so I'm asking you guys the question, what is your soul place? And please tell me your stories about a place that you feel connected to and a place that you just couldn't connect to while everybody around you was fascinated by it. I'd really be interested in finding out what you guys think about this. So contact@niceandsunny.com or just shoot me a message on social media. So I just conclude this whole thing with a really interesting quote. I don't know who said that, but basically the quote is, "You never know until you go." So I'll keep going, I'll keep visiting places, and I see if I can at some point swap out my soul place from Vegas to something more reasonable. But yeah, you'll never know until you go. So I say goodbye for now. Thanks for listening, and I talk to you soon. Bye bye.